Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, ABM, Finding Demand When the Market Slows Down. I'm Claudia Tirico, editor at Demand Gen Report, and I will be your moderator for this presentation. Right, I'm going to run through a few housekeeping slides. If you're new to our webinars, you're probably going to need some few housekeeping things, but if you've been here before, then you've already heard this spiel. But during and after today's presentation, please follow along and share your thoughts and feedback with us on Twitter and LinkedIn using the hashtag bii20. All of our Twitter handles are right here on your screen, and we really look forward to connecting with you on social. You'll also be able to tweet directly from within this platform, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. All right, here it is. For today, we'll be using the On24 platform. So yeah, during and after today's presentation, you'll be able to kind of use this entire toolbar to get all the information that you need. So like I mentioned earlier, you could tweet from directly within the platform using the Twitter widget that's on the left-hand side of your screen. We also encourage you to ask our presenter questions, and we'll have a quick Q&A following the session. So to do so, simply click that Q&A widget at the top right corner of your screen. Today's session is slated to run about 25 to 30 minutes with an additional 10 minutes of Q&A following. So please submit those questions at any time using that widget. Today's session is also being recorded, as always, and all of our attendees will receive an archive link to the presentation to go back and review and even share with colleagues and friends. We welcome you to let us know how we're doing so we could continue to improve the level of value that we provide you for all of our virtual events. So please take our quick survey that will automatically launch when the webinar session ends. I promise it won't take up too much of your time. You could even pull up, complete, and submit the survey at any time during the presentation by clicking on the survey icon that's circled at the bottom of your screen. So please, before signing off today, take a moment to complete this quick questionnaire. All right. So now I'm really pleased to introduce our featured speaker for today, Andrew Mahr of Triblio. Andrew has spent the last decade or so building high-performance teams in marketing, UX, and strategy. Most recently, he was an executive at the web agency Domain 7, where he oversaw the full services stack, managed the firm's top US and UK accounts, and launched a new product line that grew the company revenue by 30%. Andrew frequently speaks at industry events, including our own B2B marketing exchange, and also frequently speaks at Triblio's Real World ABM Tour, which is a series of presentations on account-based marketing in major cities across the country. So I promise you, we're talking about a really hot topic today, ABM, and we're in very, very good hands today. Without further ado, I'm going to pass things over to Andrew to kick off the presentation. All yours, Andrew.
Great, thank you, and glad to have everyone here today. As she just said, the topic today is ABM, finding demand when the market slows down. ABM has been a topic that, Triblio, we've been talking about, and I've been, at events about for the last few years. But the focus of, why I think it's really important right now has definitely changed in the last 6 months from being a strategy about, how to grow, how to build sales and marketing alignment, to now finding, well, how do we find the buyers who are still there during this economic downturn and all of the market disruption that's been going on for the last half year. So great to be able to speak with you all that today, and I look forward to hearing your questions and learning alongside you. Great bio at the start there. The only thing I would add to it is that I've been at Triblio for about 5 years now, so I've gotten to see the ABM landscape change quite a bit, what it looked like when we were onboarding customers 5 years ago, and the maturity of their programs, the type of lists they had, the refinement of their strategies was much different, and certainly earlier along than where things are now, where we're meeting teams all the time who have pretty advanced strategies, are deploying things across multiple regions. And it's really great to see kind of the community, all those ABM practitioners been able to help each other along so much, and to have been part of enabling all that with technology has been great. Something that I'll frequently mention, if not always, at the beginning of talks like this is that at Triblio, we want to be a partner for our ABM customers. We're bringing technology and services to that, but we're also learning a ton from our customers. All of the ideas I'm going to share today, and in any conference talk I've done the last 5 years, have been from learning from our customers. They've been the early adopters, they've been the vanguard, and so we've gotten to learn from them, the early trials, seeing what works, what doesn't, learning alongside each other. These are just some of the examples. Of course, we can't fit everyone up there, but I always want to say thanks and give my hat tip to them for allowing us to learn alongside them as they ventured into ABM and what it meant for their organizations. One last bit of kind of intro is not to me, but to the Triblio ABM platform. If you're not familiar with us, just to give you some context for some of the customer stories we'll be telling throughout today's presentation, Triblio is an account-based marketing platform end-to-end. So that starts with an orchestration and targeting engine that allows us to do reporting and tracking of where your accounts are, who's showing interest now, and where you can reach them and how most effectively to do that. And then there's 3 channels that we specifically allow you to execute campaigns on directly: account-based advertising, website personalization, and what we call sales activation, which is about deploying your sales team to the right accounts with the right plays and right content at the right time, and being able to do that in a way that scales across a team. And then because this is 2020, we're of course plugged into all the rest of the marketing technology that you have. So various ad networks, CRM, marketing automation systems, where we can also trigger campaigns, as well as analytics tools. So that's where we fit into this story. As I go through different customer examples today, I'm not going to be saying Triblio did this, this, and this, but if you can kind of picture this tech stack as we go along, I think you'll be able to connect the dots and see where specifically we've been helping out these customers with their programs. So by way of wrapping up introduction then, today's topic, finding demand when the market slows down. COVID-19, no news to anyone here, completely broke the plan. I've talked to a number of customers, and was helping them to prepare for sales kickoff presentations in the middle of January, even going into early February. The world looked very different back then, the lists of who they were going after. And things have changed now significantly. So the trade show industry and all of the marketing plans that were built into those trade shows happening, obviously has been pretty much shut down. There's no money being spent on those in-person events now in most regions. Field marketing events that are also typically a really big part of especially tier 1 ABM plans, where you might be doing on-site events with a customer, or CIO roundtables with executives, things like that. Those can't be executed. There's also been a shift in many of the accounts that I work with and talk to from new business development toward retention, as many industries and organizations are just trying to keep the business they have, focus on how they can serve the existing customers they have, and not be thinking about growth targets as much as hanging on to those really valuable customers that they're already working with. And finally, many of our organizations have had to deal with downsized marketing staff, but goals not really going down along with it. So, the short version of that is many of us are being asked to do more with less. And so you mix all of these things together, and the plans that we started the year with are significantly different. We've had to pivot. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've seen some of our most innovative customers adapting amidst all this and using ABM to do that. So there are 3 essential adjustments for ABM success when it comes to making these adaptations. The first one is to fix your list, finding the buyers who are active now in real time, and not going off of the lists you built back in January and February, probably manually and with sales conversations and older data points. You also need to fix your messaging, adjusting your messaging to whatever your current buyers' needs are. Even if you have accounts that are, were in market in January and are still in market in, here in July, you might need to offer them a very different value proposition with your tools or services than you would have if you were talking to them 6 months ago. And finally, fixing your metrics, aligning your teams on the metrics that drive pipeline and revenue. We know that leads are only part of the picture. So how do we begin reporting on, do we have traction? Are we investing and getting ROI out of the right things amidst COVID-19 and all the changes that it's imposed upon us? So the first one we'll dive into here is fixing your list. After, most organizations began to realize that their budgets were shifting, their priorities and their businesses were shifting for the, what is it going to be, the second quarter, the second half of the year. no one was sure. Marketers were wrestling with these questions, and sales teams were as well. Who entered my market? Who exited? What is the landscape like right now? Your ideal buyer profile is likely very different than it was 6 months ago, not just in the types of accounts that are still buying, because you might have some like SMBs who are buying a lot less than they otherwise would have been. But again, they also might be looking for different things, and their timelines might have shifted quite a bit. So just some examples from my network, and I'm sure all of you have had conversations like this. A logistics company that has shifted to scale alternative transit needs as work from home and curbside pickup have changed consumer patterns. So the focus of logistics isn't now just getting things from a warehouse to a store, but actually getting things from a store out into these other kind of endpoints, that last mile delivery. An HR firm that's developing all new content about healthcare issues, because now the companies that are looking into them and researching and wanting their services are a lot more focused on how do they help with healthcare specifically, as opposed to other HR topics like payroll, things like that. And finally, a hospitality firm that was shifting focus from providing residences for B2B business travelers to now going and targeting hospitals and other healthcare organizations, providing, hospitality for them near the hospital for the frontline staff, so those people who are working in and out. As healthcare workers have a safe environment to be close to the hospital where they can get recharged and continue pulling these shifts. So these are just some examples. I'm sure if you look across, any industry, you're going to see many, many more. But these businesses have all had to change how they see who's going to be buying their services right now and what they need to deliver to them in order to win their business. So uncovering all of that new opportunity as you're reassessing who's in market, who's out of market, takes this type of data that allows you to look beyond just who's in pipeline, who are you currently having conversations with, to uncovering what's in that hidden funnel, those accounts that could need your services but don't know the right terms to be finding you yet, might be talking to competitors, or might not have been in market for you because they didn't need your services a few months ago, but now all of a sudden, because their business realities have changed, they find themselves in need of your services or one of your solutions. So they wouldn't have been there, but now are. There's two types of intent data that you need in order to take that peek back into the hidden funnel and really understand who's in market now. And I kind of imagine it over a timeline like this, where there's third-party intent data. So this is intent data that you gather from properties beyond your own. So it could be syndicated content. It could be people, watching videos on other sites, reading analyst papers, attending webinars like this one, who's showing interest in those broader patterns that they're taking. And then second, first-party intent data, which is who's beginning to interact with you, even if it's anonymously, beginning to look at your resources and indicate some level of interest. And if you picture those across a buying cycle, both of them are going to be important. Both of them could be happening very early and as well as late in the funnel. But being able to tie all of those things together into a unified view of what's happening in the account allows you to see that, okay, this isn't just random web traffic, but it's actually a homepage visit from somebody who was researching a competitor of ours or our category with an analyst, or was at a webinar about this topic a couple weeks ago. That allows you to put together a much stronger profile of who is really interested right now, who can we focus our sales and marketing efforts on. So a great example of this from a customer of ours that we work with, Redpoint Global, so they sell a CDP solution. So when they're trying to use intent data to understand who's buying and why specifically are they in market right now, they use intent data not just to find accounts, but to actually triangulate around different personas. So it's a little bit more complex than this, but I'll give you kind of a simplified breakdown along two dimensions. So the first persona that they look at, you can imagine as an IT buyer. So again, they sell a CDP service. So this IT buyer there in the green is looking for things about managing customer data, regulatory compliance, privacy, keywords and topics that they're researching have to do with, again, those IT-related concerns. So they sell a CDP solution, obviously that services that. The other type of buyer that they are actively monitoring for is this customer experience professional or a marketer who's researching customer experience platforms, customer journey, customer life cycle, really more looking not at an IT solution, but wanting analytics tools that allow them to see what does a buyer's journey look like from start to finish. So depending on the topics that an account is looking at, Redpoint will make an inference that this is an IT buyer, if it's all those IT topics, versus a marketing buyer, and then actually change the marketing experience that they deliver to those accounts. So that IT buyer and other people in the account related to the IT function, if they were doing that research, would begin to see advertisements that target the pain points that that account seems to have, and vice versa for anybody in marketing, if that's the type of interest they're getting from an account. Likewise, it's not just advertising, but the buying experience on the website will actually change out. So if someone anonymously shows up after doing some research on customer data management or customer privacy concerns, and they show up on the homepage, they'll be able to see an experience that speaks directly to those pain points. So instead of getting messaging about CDP as a high-level category, or potentially getting the wrong messaging, like an invitation to an ebook or a webinar that has to do with customer buyer's journey, they're going to get those IT-related resources promoted, IT-related case studies brought up to them, and they're thus going to be able to continue their journey really naturally. And finally, if they see enough interest, they actually trigger relevant sales plays based on these patterns as well. So you can imagine the dissonance that would happen if I had been researching, customer data platforms, and then I began to see ads about how, Redpoint services this. The case studies on the website looked great. And then a salesperson reaches out to me out of nowhere and begins talking about the importance of understanding the customer buying journey. That's not aligned. That's what having these sales plays, though, teed off of the earlier parts of the experience, allows Redpoint to do really well. And their results from doing this have been fantastic. They're able to identify accounts very early in that buying process, understand and then target their messaging toward what the actual pain points are. And as a result, they're much more likely, 2.5 times as likely now, to get engagement when an account is showing intent, because now they're serving those ads and showing them the right messaging right away. So a great example there of using intent data, not just to find accounts, but to service the pain point and then deliver that appropriate message. A little word about advertising, which was featured in that last case study, is that if you are thinking about deploying account-based advertising during this time, know that it's not just one type of technology. There's also in fact, several different types of targeting technology that are typically rolled up under the banner of account-based advertising. Some of them are still working fine during coronavirus, work from home movements, these things, but not all of them. So beware of your options, understand your options and what you're doing with your vendors, and understand how strong and what the match rates are now that you would get. We're still able to do our really good messaging with our proprietary cookie pool and the matching data that we have. But if you were relying on IP level targeting before, that's not going to work for you as well during this time, because that's tied to business IP addresses primarily. Robust ABM programs, just to give you an example, in our customer base anyway, will typically use not just one of those, but several. So if you're thinking about doing a campaign that's air cover for a sales blitz, we'd probably recommend one of these CRM targeting options. Whereas if you're more trying to discover, like Redpoint was, new personas and target accounts that you haven't engaged with yet, those might be more appropriate for those persona cookies. Most of our customers, though, 61%, are not just using one type, but using a mix over time. So really important just to have flexibility there and to be able to deploy the right targeting type at the right time to get the best results. All right, the second point I wanted to cover today is fixing your messaging. So how do we do this? Your messaging needs to be able to shift really quickly and at scale. So as I was just saying, it's not just about finding new accounts in that hidden funnel. It's about understanding what needs are driving them forward right now. Are there new problems that you can solve for them that give you a chance at booking a meeting with them and getting some engagement? I was listening to a webinar from a marketer at a travel company recently who obviously lost their ability to service their accounts for creating new bookings for them, but all of a sudden found themselves in a place where they were able to deliver a service that allowed these really large global firms to safely find where their workers were on business trips all around the world as the lockdowns were starting to happen, and build kind of a map for their customers of how to get each individual home and to be able to track that over time. So this is a really new use case, but they were able to pivot really quickly. And I think all of us, to some degree, are probably experiencing this, where we have tools that had one application or one use case a couple of months ago and actually delivers new value now, but we have to be able to listen to our customers and deliver those new messages really quickly if we want to find demand during this downturn. We have to recognize that we can't just keep selling the same thing that we were. It's not just about finding new accounts, but about finding the right message to get engagement from those accounts. So don't approach this hidden funnel with the same play you were running back in January or Q4 of last year. Find those accounts and also make sure that you're delivering something that solves the pain they're feeling right now. And again, using data to drive that conversation forward and to drive that insight process is really important. So a takeaway, just to build pipeline in the downturn, you must align the message to intent and execute those campaigns across various channels. You have to align your message to the intent that your accounts are showing. So a great example of this from another one of our customers is from a company, an IT solutions provider based in Atlanta, Veristore. So they have an interesting challenge where they have over 10,000 target accounts they could be going after, and they have a number of different solutions. I think it's 15 different solutions they could be selling at any time. So it's a huge matrix that their sales team could be picking from at any moment of which account to engage, and when you do engage them, what message should I use? The cadence that you run if you think someone is interested in DevOps outsourcing is very different than if you think they're interested in cloud backup. So how do you run a campaign at scale this way? So what they did is they fed their 10,000 accounts into our system and set up a monitoring program. We're using a mix of first and third-party intent data, so mixing that research activity on other websites along with signals that were happening when we aggregated together CRM activity from leads matched to accounts and that type of thing. They were able to put together a list of target accounts that they wanted to prioritize every single week. So they gave us a number of a couple hundred accounts across their 10,000. That's the amount that they wanted to invest in at any given time. So we identified the top several hundred accounts for them and then began to probe for interest to see if it was legitimate and if they should launch a sales campaign to follow up on that. So for instance, let's say that somebody was interested in Commvault implementations, which is what's highlighted here. If we began to see interest around that topic, we didn't start driving a lot of marketing dollars or sales follow-up into that account right away, but we actually wanted to verify that that account was going to be interested in that and that was the right play to run before we had a salesperson reach out. So we used ads as a way of launching related messaging to see, are we getting click-throughs? And after those ads launch, do we see a change in behavior? Is that account now sending more people to our website, even if they aren't filling out forms? Are we beginning to see engagement go up? And the website personalization would test that hypothesis further. So they would be presented again. If they saw ads about Commvault implementation, the website messages would promote something similar. Again, not necessarily putting up gated resources, but just things to see, okay, if we put this CTA in front of them, do they respond? And if they did, we would then put them into a sales outreach play where the sales reps could reach out knowing that they weren't just reaching out to an account that was showing interest, but that the message that they were delivering in that moment was going to be spot on. So this worked really, really well for them. If you imagine, what came before this of just pure, I call it smile and dial cold call outreach, where sales reps are working through a large list alphabetically. This is essentially what many of us would be doing right now if we were reaching out to our old target account list with the same old message we had. It's just, hope is our strategy. If we reach out, maybe it'll convert. When they actually did this messaging or the sales plays where the messaging they were reaching out with was aligned to both the third-party and first-party intent data that they had collected, the reps were twice as likely to book a meeting on the phone. And when they emailed them, they were twice as likely to get that email opened and then 30% more likely to have the resources clicked on. So this is much, much higher engagement rates, but even more importantly, much higher conversion rates into opportunities. And that's not just because they had the right accounts, but it's because they would pivot their messaging in real time to make sure that if they have a bit of that customer's attention for 5 minutes on the phone or 30 seconds when they open an email, they're delivering the right message. And this is a great way of making sure that in today's market, where we know that probably less accounts are in market overall, people are spending less, businesses are spending less, that we're not wasting any of our at-bats. If we do happen to get a prospect's attention, we're delivering the right message the first time and hopefully getting our sales reps in there to convert that opportunity as many times as possible. At Triblio, we take a very similar approach, and I can go into a bit more detail with us than I do with our customers, to this dynamic sales activation where we're taking our sales resources and being really, really targeted with who we follow up with and when we do that and who we're focused on now and how the message has changed. So similar to the Veristore example earlier, we actually will prioritize a set number of accounts weekly that fills up our sales team's kind of outbound quota, so the number of accounts we want them touching base with. And before actually running any plays toward the marketing or sales, we sort those accounts into a few specific playbooks. So one of them could be accounts that are researching or currently using a competitor of ours. Another playbook is built around accounts that we know who have probably started an ABM pilot in the last 6 months, but now they need the solution to scale. So there's things we can monitor for that tell us somebody is probably in that case. And another one is if we think someone is a first-time buyer. So they don't have existing ABM infrastructure, but they do have a new hire or something like that. We can put them into this first-time buyer playbook. Then, as a next step, we'll actually enrich those accounts with contacts. So we want to make sure that when we're doing our marketing and sales activities, that all those channels are hitting the same people. So before launching even ads, we'll enrich those accounts with contacts and make sure that our ads are being served to the same people that eventually then we're going to have our sales team following up with. And before we have any further sales reps follow up, we do one more thing, which is to auto-generate a one-to-one landing page. This is a really great tactic for scaling your outreach and making sure that if marketing has done a good job building engagement in a target account and getting some level of interest from one of your target accounts, that when sales reps follow up, even if it's a relatively high volume play, what they're following up with is the right message. This sales to marketing alignment is a pain point that you'll hear about frequently if you're reading ABM white papers and think pieces. But how do you actually solve that once you're down in the weeds executing a program? A really big part is just making sure that when marketing is handing over that account to sales, sales knows what play to run. There's not confusions or question marks around, well, why should I be reaching out to this account and who is it? Are they really qualified? What are they interested in? These one-to-one landing pages that we generate look to solve all those questions by automatically populating with the right resources, doing some automatic one-to-one personalization. So the message that's on those pages is aligned to all the data we have about the account and any prior sales insights we have about the account. So when our sales reps begin reaching out, it's not, and they'll do this on LinkedIn, over email, and leaving voicemails. It's not just going to be generically sending out an ebook or a white paper and hoping they click through on it, but we'll have this one-to-one asset that we put together that will have all the look and feel of being totally aligned to that account's needs. And in fact, it is. It's just a data-driven process. Instead of asking the SDRs to do these, and maybe they could do 5 a week, we could do thousands of these a week because it's all automatic and data-driven. So this is a really great way to make sure, again, that the messaging that you have can pivot and can quickly be delivered to the right accounts at the right time and in a way that's seamless across a big team. The third and final point I'll cover here in our time is fixing your metrics. So all of us who have began to explore ABM or are practicing it know that there is a change that happens in your organization when you're shifting your strategy from a lead-centric model to an account-centric model. There's myriad changes you need to make that your executive team and board are going to have to get used to over time of seeing different types of reports. These are some of the big things that stand out. Is that you're going to go from obviously reporting leads to an account-centric model. So the numbers are going to change, the expectations are going to change. In a lead-based model, MQLs are typically what trigger a sales outreach. In an account-based model, you might not have an MQL in your marketing automation system, but a system like Triblio could identify that something is a marketing qualified account. Even if you don't have a lead in your records for it yet, there's enough interest happening from that account that you want sales to reach out. That's a very new type of handoff and a new type of play to run and an important metric to track. A big shift also happens in going from single channel attribution, whether you're using first touch, last touch, W-shaped. Those are all about looking at what's the influence of one channel at one point in time. In account-based marketing, and you could see it in the customer stories that we were telling earlier, it's much more fluid across different channels. You could be advertising to someone, and as a result of that, they might Google for you and hit your website and request a demo. That'll look like SEO if you're using an SEO-sourced deal. If you're using single channel attribution. In account-based view, you have to be able to look across all of your channels at once to see what was the mix that got you there, and not just look at that last touch, because it's going to miss a lot of the view-through benefits that things like sales outreach have, that things like advertising have, and other brands plays in the marketing playbook. A fourth thing is that you're going to be moving primarily from an inbound, where you're waiting for leads to come to you, to an outbound model. Typically, these things are just running side by side in an organization today, where marketing is trying to generate all the inbound and sales just kind of runs outbound on their own, working through prospect lists, hunting on LinkedIn, that type of thing. In an account-based model, marketing is really teeing up those outbound lists. They're pre-qualifying things, they're prioritizing things. Sales really should not be reaching or just using their intuition to reach out to accounts that they feel good about. In a mature ABM program, there is going to be a data-driven emphasis, especially for how like an SDR function works. When you're looking at how, where marketing's influence is, it's not just going to be inbound, but outbound too. And then finally, as I was mentioning, in that traditional demand gen model, SDRs might be sourcing a lot of their own leads, getting some things from marketing, those MQLs, but also hunting down their own stuff. Marketing is really responsible for cleaning and teeing up a lot better data for SDRs. This is going to make them a lot more effective. It's also going to mean that marketing is able to influence a lot more important deals. So how do we actually begin to work toward this kind of account-based model? Well, it takes time, but there's three things I would highlight as being really important steps you can begin to take. The first one is to implement AI-driven sales prioritization. So if you think about traditional sales prioritization, lead scoring, it's somewhat arbitrary. You're going to go in there into marketing automation and enter a point system where you think one activity is worth more than another. It's limited. It's only going to include first-party interactions. So somebody has to convert. They have to be a name in your system in order for you to understand what's happening. And then it's also kind of a one-size-fits-all, where activities are not made relative to the account size or strategic value, but instead, all the scoring is applied the same. We have a system in Triblio called Smart Scoring that really looks to automatically adapt to all these factors and take the ambiguity out of the picture for you. So it's intelligent. So instead of being arbitrary and assigning point values manually, from a spreadsheet, the system will do that for you. We will figure out what accounts tend to be better indicators of a deal happening with that account. We'll aggregate those things both from known contacts as well as all the anonymous activity we have and even third-party intent activity. And it's adaptive. We'll automatically weight them toward, strategic accounts can get weighted differently. Customers can be weighted differently than prospects. So you're looking for upsell opportunities with a different profile than you would in a business opportunity of the same solution. So these are all ways that Smart Scoring makes this really simple for you and allows you to provide a new view of your accounts for sales to work off of that is, again, data-driven and is going to convert much, much higher when they're reaching out to them. Teams that switch over to this view don't go back. This is a much better way of approaching things and is going to convert much higher and lead to much better outbound results. The second thing you need to be able to do really well is measure progress with an account funnel. So in a lead gen funnel, you probably just have that top view and you're thinking, well, how many leads can we get in here? And the more we get in, the more we'll convert to MQL and opportunities and so on. In an account-based funnel, you're starting with a finite list much of the time. You might have a top 500 accounts or 1,000 accounts in a certain region, and that defines your universe. You know who you're supposed to be going after. And so what you're looking for is not how much can we just get into this top number, but starting with that finite top number, how effectively are we converting from one stage to the next? How do we optimize the way that someone moves from a stage of being reached, where your campaigns are touching them, all the way down to when they're marketing qualified or actually in pipeline? These conversion rates are going to hopefully look a lot better for you than lead conversion rates do, because you're starting with that pre-qualified list of accounts that you know are potentially in market. But a list like this can also adapt over time too. So if you are just feeding an intent data program into a funnel like this, then you'll see that funnel size change over time. But again, instead of just focusing on one buyer at a time, and if you get 3 leads from an account, that looks like you have 3 potential deals. This gives you an account base for you where you can see, no, really, even though there's 5 people from this account and 1 person from that account, that's 2 opportunities, not 6. So it gives you a much more realistic picture of how much pipeline you actually have. So some of these definitions that we use in our program are reached, are campaigns touching the right accounts, engaged, are the accounts actually responding to campaigns more over time, or more people showing up, MQA, the accounts that are ready for sales follow-up, and then of course pipeline, how many of those accounts are now actively in sales conversations with us and that we have deal potential with. The third and final point I want to make about this, shifting to an account-based view, is instead of passing over lead by lead account information to your sales team, provide them with a single pane of glass so they can go into one place, ideally your CRM, your sales engagement platform, and get a unified view of the third-party intent data you have, the first-party data you have, what's happening on your website, what events have they attended, who's most engaged in the account, and what campaigns have they interacted with. They should not be needing to hunt through a spreadsheet, a PDF, a marketing automation report that got emailed to them, and putting all those together. They should be able to just have one pane of glass for this. Triblio does this automatically. We put these insights right into CRM for them, and then we can actually trigger these things into weekly email digests, sending them tasks if you want to create a dashboard. Again, this is a huge, not just time saver, but insight engine for your sales team, so that when they log in on Monday morning and want to know what accounts in my pipeline most need follow-up from me today, or what accounts in the territory that I manage are most ready to have a conversation, even if I haven't heard from them yet, where is marketing getting me traction that I can cooperate with early and get in there? This type of reporting in their CRM gives them that insight and allows them to take the right actions in concert with all the great work that your marketing organization is delivering. So that's it for the main content I wanted to cover today before we go over to Q&A. Again, fixing your list, finding those new buyers who need your help, fixing your message, getting the right value proposition to them, knowing that it's changed significantly and using data to put that together, and then fixing your metrics. So I hope this was valuable for everyone today and that you're able to take some of these things away and find that demand, rebuild that pipeline for your team during this downturn. With that, I also wanted to just mention that if you need some of these resources or you want to get a picture for yourself of what those Smart Score lists could look like, we'd be more than happy to give you a free preview of this. So just schedule a discovery call with us so that we can begin to get your data and rank these accounts for you. We'll learn a little bit more about your account and what you're looking for in these reports, and basically give you a free preview of what it's like to have AI stack ranking your accounts for you and for your sales team, and get a preview of that. It'll take about 1 to 2 weeks to start to get your data after you let us know you need it. So hopefully you guys will take us up on that. We're really excited to introduce this and just help as many teams as we can with this offer. So definitely let us know if you're interested. And with that, I will hand things back off.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. That was really insightful. And we did get some good questions from the audience. But before I get to those, I just want to remind everyone once again to please share your thoughts and feedback before logging off today. You can do so by clicking that survey icon at the bottom of your screen, or just wait until the session ends and the survey will automatically launch. Another just quick heads up to everyone. We'll get to a few questions right now just based on timing. But if we don't get to your question, don't worry. We will be sure to follow up with an answer for you via email. All right, so let's get to those questions. All right, first one. How do these suggestions apply to someone who has been tasked to focus on retention?
Yeah, and this is something that we're hearing a lot, is that marketing needs to help drive not just new business outcomes, but now also supporting whether it's a customer success team or account management team. How do we make sure that we're servicing those customers and retaining them? Really, the principles cross over really well. So that first thing about fixing your list is really, it's going to be 2 lists for you. One, where are the near-term opportunities where you might have opportunities for upsell or cross-sell, or just introducing products that your customers need. Maybe you're doing it for free because the time we're in. But using data to identify the accounts that need something different from you than what you're delivering for them right now. You could do that by looking at how they're engaging on your site, how, what topics they've begun to research elsewhere, then how those patterns are changing. But I think helping your account team look for the either the cross-sell or the new service opportunities is point one. The second one is also going to be fixing your list in terms of looking at risk. Marketing can do a lot to help customer success managers or account managers and retention teams get ahead of risk. So instead of waiting for that 90-day renewal cycle to kick off, for instance, you might see, a couple months before that an account is showing signs of a lack of engagement or beginning to research a competitor, things like that. You can use that to build a list of now accounts, customer accounts that you can begin doing these marketing campaigns toward. So not just teeing up leads for your new business team, but teeing up accounts for your account managers saying, hey, you might not have talked to accounts A, B, and C recently, but it looks like they need some attention. Here's the message we recommend you deliver. And of course, those like one-to-one assets that we talked about, being able to deliver a really specific message to those accounts is something that plays really well in your customer base, where they want to know that they're a priority for you, an important account, and that you're able to put together resources just for them. So it's going to depend on how high touch your current account management structure is. If you have account managers managing 1,000 customers versus 15, obviously there's going to be a lot of nuance there in what type of lists you're building and what those motions look like. But the principle of shifting, using data to build lists, to build priority lists, and to get the message right, and then feeding those to your account teams proactively very much applies. The other point I'll make is that for a long time, I'll get asked at events, things like this, what's the one piece of ABM advice that, you think more people should be adopting when they get started? And I've been saying for a while, it's to start with marketing to your customers. And that was pre-COVID, just because ABM really does best when it's driven by great insights. And most organizations have much better insights about their customers than they do about prospects. And so even though you might have a really attractive list of 10 new accounts you want, you probably know more about how to drive extra dollars from your 10 highest current customers than you do from those 10 new net new accounts that you don't have relationships with yet. So this is actually a great time for you to begin developing those muscles and start a customer marketing program, and maybe have it be something that you can carry over into the new year when hopefully the world starts to go back to normal a little bit. You might have already developed this and be able to keep some momentum with it and have a more diversified program where you've got a foot in customer marketing as you're obviously getting back to hitting your new business numbers too.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to go for one more just to keep it under that 45-minute mark, give people some time before the next session. So I kind of picked out a really good one here. Oh, I've heard a lot about third-party intent. What do I need that to get started?
Yeah, that is a good question. You don't need third-party intent data to get started. Again, we think about intent data as really being two types. And third-party is something you buy off the shelf from other vendors. But first-party is something you already have. You just might not be able to interpret it yet. So that first-party intent data could be aggregating, with lead to account matching, pulling together all the different lead interactions in your CRM into a unified view. So you can see, which accounts actually do we have the broadest kind of buyer, largest buying groups with, that type of thing. There's also unmasking, your website activity to understand what accounts are behind that, 98% or so of visitors that remain anonymous on those B2B websites, pulling that into account profiles. Just beginning to use that first-party intent data can be a great pilot program or foray into this data-driven approach. You can use it to build those marketing prioritization lists. You can use it to build kind of market customer, upsell and cross-sell programs. The first upsell that Triblio ever got in our history was off of first-party intent data from our website. And you can use it to be figuring out what messaging is resonating with people now. So first-party intent data definitely is a viable way to get started. And again, the kind of the Smart Score offer that I talked about earlier aligns to that perfectly. That's exactly what that is. It's first-party intent data that we'll pull from your systems and put into an account ranking scheme for you, so you can know who to prioritize. So definitely, that's enough for getting started.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. That's all the time we have for questions. But once again, don't worry if we didn't answer yours. We will definitely follow up via email. All right, that's a wrap. Thank you again to Triblio's Andrew Mahr for that awesome presentation, and thank you to all of our attendees for joining us today. The session will be available on demand shortly, but be sure to catch our next session. It's called Using Data and Insights to Build Personalized Buying Experiences and Drive Higher Engagement with Buying Groups. It's coming up very soon. We hope to see you there. If not, thanks again. Have a great rest of your day and stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye.